I know.
It is 5:30, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. We will start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Chris, take the roll, please.
Councilmember Galloway?
Here.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Here.
Councilmember Dupre?
Here.
Councilmember Cavanis?
Here.
Councilmember Reed? Mayor Foote?
Here. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Chris, take the roll, please.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember Dupre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanis?
Yes.
And before we start into the agenda, I will remind anyone that would like to speak on an item on the agenda, these slips of paper are right there in the basket on the front banister. If you fill those out, they'll get those up here and we can make sure that you're able to speak, and we'll give you your 3 minutes and we'll have that taken care of. So with that, we'll move to item number 1.
Consideration of assignment and assumption of contract for collection of refuse, recyclables, bulky items, and yard waste, and the consent of the city. Recommendation: approve the assignment of contract.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Yeah, Administrator.
All right. So for everyone's information and hasn't looked at the packet, on May 7th, so it was last week, city staff was approached regarding potential sale of Bridge City Sanitation LLC, the current provider of the city's residential refuse and recycle collection program, also the yard waste and bulky items. Contract with BCS does provide for the transfer of the contract to another provider with express written consent of the city. And then the attached document would satisfy that, which is an assignment and assumption of the contract for the collection, basically assuming the contract as referenced. And we do have the owners of Bridge City Sanitation, Jason Bunt and Keith Lewis here, as well as representatives from Castle Capital, which is the entity looking to purchase the company and essentially the contract as part of that sale. So like I said, I'd invite them up to maybe share a little bit more about how this came to fruition and give some background on that, and maybe a little bit of explanation of the company and what they look to do with the pending service.
Okay, thank you. I'm Keith Lewis, as most of you already know. This is members of the Castle Capital that were interested in and have been in many discussions related to the acquisition of the company, primarily because I'm ready to retire. But so this is Shandis Mahon and Doug Assay, and we'll let them tell you about their company and what they plan to do, and go from there.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. So Chandis Mahon with Castle. I founded Castle about 10 years ago. We invest and operate into environmental service companies, which waste includes that. And what we've been thinking through on how to build a best-in-class trash service business here in Southern Iowa, and came across Bridge City and saw that this would be a really interesting opportunity to invest and grow and help Bridge City Sanitation continue and flourish. And we're pretty excited about it. So we've first and foremost, the plan is to keep the company as is and intact, so it continues to operate as Bridge City Sanitation. It's all the employees stay with us. Plans also to, as Keith retires, plans to also keep Jason as part of our leadership team. Also realize Kyle who's also here, does a lot of the local operations to stay as local manager. We're bringing in Doug Asay to my right to run the company for us. I'll let him spin a little more about his background, but he's second generation in the waste space. And then in terms of our group and experience, we just spent the last 7 years running a waste business on the West Coast that was focused more on tire waste. Our group includes the ownership of USA Recycling out of the Northeast, which runs about 500 trucks throughout Connecticut. Our group also includes the team that started Frontier Waste, which ran about 600 trucks out of Texas. The CEO of that company is joining our board to provide additional oversight. So I'll pause there. Let Doug explain a little bit about his background, and then happy to open it up for questions on us.
Thanks, Janice. Honorable Mayor, city staff, and council, thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak with you today. As Candace mentioned, my name is Doug Asay. I'm a second generation garbage man. I've spent nearly 40 years in the space, managing companies all up and down the West Coast, across 10 states, from Alaska to Mexico and from Hawaii to about the Rocky Mountains, Colorado. I'm from the bottom. My first job in the business was washing dumpsters, and operated as a driver and mechanic, and then ultimately managed 352 companies, 12,000 trucks across those states before venturing into being an owner. I did own some garbage companies in Arizona and also in Hawaii that I operated up until 2016 as their CEO. After which I joined Candace and his team in his environmental services group, and we're excited to partner with this community on providing these important services. If you have any questions, you'd like me to go into any details deeper, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, and I understand some of the stuff there, and I got some questions, and I may have to ask and then let somebody else go and then ask again. Did you say, so will there be a leadership change here? Will there be a leader in town that's invested in Ottumwa that's a manager here?
The short answer is yes. Plans for Kyle to continue to be a local operations manager for us. Plans also for us to have and be part of our leadership team, who's local. And then Doug Asay will be, we need to finalize the details on his exact location where he's living, but here within a certain radius of town.
And then I would just like a little bit of detail, and I'm not going to sit and ask a million questions. Like I said, I might go back and forth here, but I just want to get to the hard ones first. When it comes to equipment, there was an obligation to replace equipment, update equipment. What is the condition of the equipment right now? And when was it updated last? And how will your company handle that?
Yeah, very good question. To us, the age of the fleet's very important. Keith and Jason run a handful of trucks that are on the newer side. They also run a handful of trucks that are probably a little long on the tooth on the older side. So after we get through this transition, we will need to make the necessary. Our intention is to make necessary investments and to make sure we're keeping our fleet healthy average age. I know in the USA Recycling business, that fleet age is less than 5 years as an average age. In Frontier, it's probably closer to 5 or 6. I think our average fleet age here at Bridge City Sanitation is closer to 10. Just give you an indication of kind of how we want to manage it and where it's at today.
Okay. And then I would like to bring this up now. I know these are tough questions and hard questions. They're not meant to insult anybody, but we do have an extremely high number of complaints daily. monthly. Some of those opportunities are the equipment spraying hydraulic fluid on people's vehicles in their driveways, on the streets. This is something that's been a recent problem. It's also some problem. I mean, for the last couple of years I've been here. I've also had issues that I've actually turned into Administrator Wrath that he's followed up with people throwing trash cans down the alley. And it's no offense to those guys, but I do, and I understand that it's one of the biggest utilities in Ottumwa. So of course it's going to garner the most complaints. But how do you plan to handle the improvement of customer service? And this is a hard question, I know, but if you're far away and your company doesn't have direct contact and we have the same leadership, how do we improve and grow the company to break some of those bad habits?
Yeah. Yeah. So not having a full understanding of the challenges that have historically been here, I think first and foremost, we would like to work with the council to understand what those challenges are so we can just address them head on. I think part of it starts with just training and with our drivers. So things like, where do the trash cans go, making sure they don't get thrown, how do we correctly put them away. Training is needed, then that's what we would provide. I think also important part is the communication. So if the council's getting complaints, do we have the ability to have the residents call us and say, hey, this is what's happening, so we can address the issue before it even comes to council. That's kind of part of what we want to understand. And then in terms of the trucks, to your earlier question, as the trucks age out, they need to be replaced. So things like running a truck with a broken hydraulic hose is probably not acceptable in our standards. So if we have a truck that has a hydraulic leak, we're standing it down and we're getting it fixed. And so implementing a maintenance program that's correctly maintaining the trucks.
And just a quick question, you can give me the 5-second answer. Say that continued to be a problem with the equipment or the hydraulic fluid, or at the landfill station dropping hydraulic fluid on their scales or on people's trucks or in their driveways. Who would we reach out to as Administrator Rath?
Yeah.
If I turned a complaint into him, who would he reach out to get this matter solved? Because I think, and I don't want to make any judgment, sometimes they do call Bridge City Sanitation and do contact us. And I think the council does a good job of referring them back, like, hey, have you called them, and give them a chance to take care of it. But I think we get a lot of calls and frustration as well with nothing being done. And again, I want to add that I know they're one of the biggest utilities in Ottumwa, so they're going to get, the level of complaints is going to be higher. Yeah. But there are some that I believe could, like, there's no excuse for throwing a trash can. There's no excuse for continued problems with hydraulic fluid on people's vehicles and in their driveway. So who would we reach out to?
So we want to make sure if you're having an issue, it just doesn't fall on deaf ears. So with the council, it would be Doug Asay and myself would be an escalation point where you guys would have our cell phones, and if there's an issue not being addressed by our local team, which would also include Doug, but you can escalate to myself.
So we would have direct access to Doug.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Like I said, I'll probably end it with that unless something comes into my head. As cornbally as this sounds, I just think the citizens of Ottumwa, they deserve a good service. And I know mistakes are made, and I know services can always be improved, but we just want growth. We want to take where we're at and make it a better experience for our citizens. If that's something we can take off their plate. So my last question is, how invested are you in Ottumwa? How do you feel about Ottumwa? Is Ottumwa a place that you respect and want to be part of growing, or is it just a business?
We were just down in the neighborhood earlier in prep for this meeting, and we were talking about, wouldn't it be nice to get a house here? So it's, our exposure to the town has been limited, but the experience so far, it's a place where I could consider like my wife and children to come call home. Right. And whether or not I do that, that's the view of like, we understand the community. This is the home to your 10,000 residents. Right. And we want to make sure we're respecting that. And it's not about just, that we're an important part of the community as well.
Right. All right. I guess I'll kind of end with that, Mayor. So I just want to thank you guys for coming a long ways down and answering questions. So I appreciate it.
So where is your main office located?
So our team is spread all over. Technically, headquarters is Miami. Doug Ace is on the West Coast in Washington. My other partners in Portland, Oregon. Our other investment partners are in Texas. So we're kind of spread all over the U.S.
So is this your first Midwest location that you're looking at?
That's correct. Yes.
What made you pick Ottumwa?
So we think it's a beautiful town. So it's a part where we want to be a part of the community. We think it's sized right. It's a large town, but it still has this town feel where we can make an impact. I think there's an interesting opportunity here with Bridge City Sanitation on how to take what they've been doing and the good job they've been doing and further improve on that and to Bill's point, improve the resident experience,
No, it's nothing.
improve quality of service,
So for local emergencies, they would call the local office like they do now. Nothing there would change, but if it wasn't answered, then we would have numbers to escalate it up the food chain.
That's correct. Also, part of it too is making sure the local office is correctly staffed.
Okay.
So-
So you're planning on maintaining our current staff, and are you planning on building on that, or?
Yeah, so we definitely plan on maintaining 100% of the staff that's here. Something like putting in a customer service rep that is answering phones, fielding questions when there's bulk pickup, fielding that if a trash got left behind, or like really providing additional customer service and dispatching and keeping that local here.
Okay. And Doug, you said that you have a lot of years of experience in this.
Nearly 40.
That's a few. Do you normally come into cities like this where we've had problems, and do you have a background on cleaning up?
I've had a lot of experience with that, especially during my days at Waste Management.
Okay. And
That was one thing that drove my actions.
were you with the company Waste Management, or were you?
I was.
Okay.
I was part of a startup that was founded in 1998 called EnviroFill, and through a series of acquisitions and mergers later became USA Waste. And then in 1999 acquired Waste Management.
Could you talk into the mic so that, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
So one question and first I want to say the conversations I've had with Jason have been good. I know some of the struggles you've had is with employment retention, quality employees. And so my question would be along that lines is acquiring Bridge City into your own company, how would you retain employees that are doing a good job and then also grow that staff into having the good employees that really are the ground roots for good service?
Sure. Yeah, so I think first and foremost, safety is at the very top of our list, and creating a culture around safety that respects that. And then in regards to the actual retention of employees, we've taken a philosophy where our most important resource within the company is our employee. Like if our trash truck driver isn't showing up, then residents aren't getting serviced, right? So they're a critical part of our service. And so providing them compensation that's typically above market wages allows us to not just be competitive with rates, but actually provide a place where our employees can prosper. I could share some stories on like past companies, but one of the most proudest moments like I personally have is watching one of our employees grow through our ranks, be able to buy his first home, put his child through college. Like being part of that success story means a lot to us.
Sure.
So I have one more question. On your typical acquisitions that you say you go around the country and you've been buying these companies, do you still have all of them, or do you trade them and sell them down the road? Do you turn them over often, or do you hold on?
So we're not a fix and flip it situation. But yes, the good example is like the tire waste business we were in. We owned and operated that for about 7 years. And for the next phase of growth, there was another partner that takes it to the next phase. So there are transition periods in our life cycle of owning and operating a business. But it's not a kind of a fix and flip. In 2 years, we're selling this business to someone else.
So do you have like a 5-year or 10-year plan, or?
So I would say it's closer to a 10-year plan on how we grow this out.
Thank you.
So Bridge City also has contracts with other towns. Will you all look to maintain those too? I know we're talking about Ottumwa right now, but.
Yes.
The research that I have done on your company to me that you are mostly an investment company. And as you have indicated, your management people are spread all over the United States. So I don't know if I'm interested, and I know Mr. Lewis personally, and I don't want to prevent him from retiring, but I'm not willing to let him retire on us just choosing or accepting the first guy coming in the door to offer to take over the business. So that's my opinion at this point. If I'm wrong, if you are not an investment company, if you are more local than you have indicated in management, you can tell me that.
So I definitely respect that opinion. To give you some examples, so yes, we are investors, but we're operators at heart. When we operated the tire waste business, when we acquired that in 2017, I personally went and moved to Portland, Oregon, and operated it as CEO locally in the office for over 6 years. So that's part of our push. Doug Ase will be here. We're not sure which town in southern Iowa, but invested in kind of in the local community running this. So yeah.
Okay, I guess that's kind of an answer. But I'll leave it go at that for now. Thank you.
Any other questions?
And are we taking action tonight?
Yeah, we are. And yep, I guess one question I would have is, as we take action, what is the result of approving and what is the result of not approving the resolution?
The first part, to approve the assignment and assumption of the contract, that would then the three entities, the city and these two entities that are, when sale is finalized, that would turn over the contract and the operations of the contract then to Castle Capital, who has indicated that it's still Bridge City Sanitation technically, but they're going to be the owners now instead of Bridge City Sanitation LLC. Should the city council opt not to approve the assignment and assumption of contract, that, I guess, technically speaking, wouldn't mean that the sale couldn't go through, but that would leave Bridge City Sanitation LLC on the hook to do the contract. If the employees and trucks are no longer there, they would not have equipment to do that. They would not be able to perform. City could then send notice of failure to perform and give 21 days to fix that or remedy it under the contract. Since they don't have equipment or employees, assuming that they would not be able to resolve that within 21 days, they would then be in breach, and we would send notice of that, give 5 days, and the city would be left finding somebody to provide the sanitation services during that period. Could go out for an RFP, but that's going to take time as well.
And this contract would not extend. So this contract would end July 28th, 2031. And then, correct. And then I guess it could do an extension, but it's not subject to an extension.
Right. A third alternative is both parties, the city and Bridge City Sanitation, could terminate the contract with a mutual termination of convenience, and then that would leave it open to city to go out for an RFP sooner than the 26 days. But again, that's still having to provide that service until a new provider is identified. And most likely a short-term contract is going to be more expensive than the current contract.
And provided this is approved, then Castle then takes the ownership of the contract and then needs to fulfill the contract as written, correct?
Correct.
And I know, and I guess I wanted to say that because, as you know, this hit city council on the agenda. So now all the public is talking about it, which means all the concerns that have been spoken over the past however many years have come to the surface. And so I just wanted to make that clear, knowing that all those concerns won't go away unless you do it. If council approves this and you step in, those concerns won't go away unless you step in and take ownership of it. So that's, yeah.
I would actually like to add, Mayor, and I'd be doing a disservice to the people that put me up here if I didn't ask. My hang up is, obviously you're a businessman and I don't care that if you're an investor and you're buying it, but I do want money here local. I do want jobs local. Mm-hmm. But if we have the same leadership team, how are we correcting these issues? Because these issues would just continue, only under different ownership. So that really is a big hang up with me. So I want to support this, but I want you to convince me that I understand that there's going to be some complaints, but we need to bring the level of complaints down. Mm-hmm. We can't throw people's trash cans. We can't have hydraulic. We can't say we're going to get equipment and then not fix equipment. It just can't happen. And this has happened to all of us. I think sometimes it's complacency when we're in a contract and we do the same job every day. So how are you going to guarantee me that we're not going to be complacent and people are going to hit the ground running every day to take care of the citizens?
Yeah, so I think we need a full understanding of the scope of what issues the residents see. So I would love to understand that. I would say that I think it comes, based on what you've shared so far, kind of boiling down into two things. One is behavior, and the second is investments. So things like trucks leaking fluid, that's a lack of investment into the fleet. And that's something we would be able to take action on and make sure that the average fleet is how we are familiar with running it in other environments, not an average of a 10-year age, right? So that's something that just comes with additional investment on our side. On behavior, making sure our drivers are driving safe, making sure we're putting trash cans where they should be. That is a behavioral training situation where we'd be investing into our employees here and teaching them the right habits and then reinforcing those.
So, and this is the last thing I'll say, because I don't want to keep beating you up. You'll have training for the leadership too, because I'm a firm believer. I was in leadership for years. The leader sets the tone for the organization. And I apologize. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings here, but if people are throwing a trash can, that's because it's accepted. If equipment is failing, that's because it's accepted. Whoever the leaders are set the tone for the organization. So how will you work with leadership? How are you going to fix the top so it goes down through and everything is corrected?
So we start with putting Doug Asay at the top, and him ingraining the culture that we're trying to build here, which we want Bridge City Sanitation to be a best-in-class service provider. From your feedback, it sounds like there's a long road to that point, and so we're committed to figuring out how to go down that road. It's not a magic button where, day one of under our new leadership, it's changed. This is a cultural issue. So we're investing our time and resources into demonstrating the culture we want and making sure that's how we're operating the company.
Yeah, and I don't care about a long road. I mean, I just don't want to go down a long road, come to a stop sign and stop.
Yeah.
So, and then, sir, will you visit Ottumwa once in a while? Will you get eyes and visual and?
I'll be in the area majority of the time.
Oh, okay. Mayor, that satisfies me. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I would like to mention that the council, I think, all got these complaints and statements of trash totes that were stolen. This goes back probably not quite a year, but it's a pretty sizable list of complaints. And so I would have to tell you, I'm not real happy with the people that are working right now. I don't think they're doing all of their job. And I think that they could have much improvement, and that might take some hands-on instruction to monitor what they're doing and how they're doing it. I don't run a disposal business, never have, don't want to, but I do know when we get complaints daily about things that aren't being accomplished under the contract, it's just not a good idea. Thank you.
Mayor, I'll end with, I just want to be transparent to my fellow council members. I probably will support it, but I want to hold you to your word about the growth and the loyalty to the citizens of Ottumwa.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, with the assumption of the contract, that would be the same thing if there are issues that are identified and there is not resolution, that would fall under the new company, the same as it would the prior company. So they would have time and understanding of what those issues were and an ability to resolve those. And I think that's what they're saying is without full knowledge of that. But sounds like you're committed to fixing those items that.
And sir, you'd be willing to sit with council and just to share our thoughts and complaints we get.
Anytime.
So if we say yes to this, when does this go into effect?
I believe it was June 1.
So we're currently tracking with June 1. It may be a week or so after that, but that's our target date.
Okay.
And you, Doug, would be here then from that point?
That's correct.
So hearing all you've heard, you're ready to jump on and go 90 miles an hour forward, right?
Yes.
Okay. If no other questions, Chris, take the roll, please.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember Dupre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavaness?
No,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
That was a vote, yes. No, I didn't see a slip of paper from you, Gail. No, I'm sorry.
What do we do then?
If you would like to come up and speak. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was supposed to bring the paper to you. So I am going to voice my opinion. I'm not sure you guys know what you are getting into. I just want to say that. He's here, but he's a damn good worker. But he's basically commercial sanitation. I'm not sure who's in charge of Bridge City side of it. I do know that answers are never, questions are never answered. And I feel like Jason is part of that I have so many people that call me and say that they call and nobody ever returns their phone call. So, and my other question is, when are we going to get new trucks? Because their trucks are terrible. I sent in pictures from a couple years ago, even my street. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss, but why do they, Kurt just showed me a picture. He followed them all the way to the landfill Friday and oil's leaking. And we got 2 big messes on the scale. Why can't they? I know it's probably a safety issue, but why can't it be fixed where it's broke instead of leaking it all over creation? I don't know. I feel bad saying anything. Keith, I hope you do. Where'd you go? Keith, I hope you do get to retire. But like I said, if you guys are getting into this, you're going to have to make sure Jason and whoever else do their jobs. And where's my paper? Okay, so I've said that. No one ever calls the customers back. Another question is, who called who? Did Bridge City Sanitation call them, or did they call Bridge City Sanitation? And since we're switching contracts, can it be opened up to make some changes? Everybody knows the contract's been broken, I don't know how many times. And when are we going to get the new trucks? I've been there so long, I'm friends with a lot of them. Tom's back there. I know about his health history. We all talk, we're friends. But you guys can't keep doing this to the employee. Hopefully they do get better wages so that you do get some good people. There's, nobody's perfect. Certainly not me, but I just had one of them tell me that the brakes got fixed one day, and the very next day, the brakes went out. He said that he was going to take the ditch if he couldn't get it stopped. And it's just, there's a lot of concerns. There's just a lot of concerns. I'd invite you guys to come out to the landfill. I'll be there tomorrow. My boss, I think she should be there. But sorry, I wish I would have gotten that up there to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Gail.
No, that's okay. Next time I'll know.
And as I stated before, once this contract switches over now to Castle, they are under the same contract. They're under the same responsibilities. Only now I think there's a higher level of scrutiny of the community that will hold them accountable to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You want me to read this or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Continued discussions on the sewer base fee as set by ordinance number 3243, 2025, and the delayed imposition of said fees until July 1st, 2026 for multifamily dwellings and each mobile home lot of a mobile home park.
Okay, so this is something I asked be put on the agenda, and actually I had a council member ask to put this on here as well. Simply for the fact of, I want to start first by understanding what the sewer fee is going to do July 1, if nothing is changed, and then start the discussion there and then move forward.
Under the current ordinance, on July 1, without any other council action, flow rate, the flow rate, the user fee type of fee will go up. What's that? No, will go up 6%. Additionally, the base fee will go up 6% and will be applied to each residential unit of rental properties. So if you have 4 units, you'll get 4 base charges.
And then one of the questions that would come up, what is the purpose of the base fee and why can we go to 100% usage fee?
So the purpose of the base fee is to provide a guaranteed steady income for the infrastructure requirements of the system. And when I say the infrastructure requirements, I'm talking about the storm sewer and sanitary sewer pipes, not the actual waste treatment facility. Okay. I would caution against going to 100% user fee in that you can have some fluctuations from year to year that could possibly jeopardize the ability to meet our obligations under both the consent order and the debt that we have to incur for future debt that we have to incur for the separation projects. There are certainly other mixes of way to do things with the base fee and the user fees. If the council is, wanting to shift more to the user fee side, I would still recommend having at least some sort of base charge. And whatever the council decides on this, I really do need to run through our financial advisor who prepared the pro forma that we based the current ordinance on. I did have a discussion with him today, and he going back and he's also looking at history. As he said, he's been involved with this since Bob Jay was financial director, right? So he wants to be able to fully go through, maybe clean some things up. He thinks that there might be some assumptions that are built into this that are no longer valid, and he wants to be able to come back and say, hey, this is what is needed on the expense side. So then we can then work on the revenue side to get to where we need to be.
Just one point of clarification with the base fee, correct me if I'm wrong, that also currently includes all of the storm water charges. So anything we do with storm water, that is under the base fee of the sanitary charge.
Correct, because what it is that guaranteed income of the base fee is what is guiding the sewer separation projects that are required under the EPA.
Does that have anything to do with the revenue bond as well?
The sum of the revenues taken into the sewer fund 610 are divvied up between operations and the revenue bonds. The base fee helps to make sure that we have sufficient revenues to cover those revenue bonds as well.
When did we take out the revenue bond?
We've had multiple revenue bonds. I think I think we've got an SRF loan on the books that was from before 2010, and so it goes back quite a ways. We've just taken one out for the current phase, and we're expected to take out at least one more after the next phase.
So how are those taken out? How do those get started? Do
So-
those come to us that we know that we're getting the revenue bond, or is that just something that is done?
So we could do one of two ways. We could go out and we could sell revenue bonds, but the interest rate is going to be much higher. The state provides this revolving loan fund that gives us a much lower interest rate, so that the cost to the city and our residents is less. So what we do is we apply for those loans based upon estimated cost of the project, estimated timeline of the project, and we have to submit a pro forma showing that we have revenues and expenditures covered for both operations and the debt service.
So that's something that you do that we don't know that that's what's going on, but that's how you get the money to do these.
Right. So we start the process here, yes. But
It goes
yeah,
to
but it does
council
go through the
approval.
council. Exactly. It goes through the council for submission and approval.
That was my question. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I know if we need a certain amount guaranteed, and there's fluctuations, surely there's got to be a minimum amount that we can do on a use fee that still gets us a guaranteed amount.
Well, if you do a minimum amount on the use fee, you basically have the base charge. See what I'm saying? I mean, it's
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is,
Are you saying so like what it is you set that that the minimum user charge is 2 or 3 units?
yeah, I guess what I'm saying is whatever number we need to be at on the low
Well,
end,
Right,
we should be able to set a use fee
right,
based off of the however many gallons or whatever,
right.
to be able to hit that with the population we have. And then if it's a little higher, then that gives us a cushion, right?
Right. So, okay, so go ahead.
Just, you can look at this chart. I made a chart of the sewer utility revenue since 2008, but that's when it starts, 2008. But we didn't raise rates from 2014 to 2020. And every single year, except for the last one, like revenue went down. It went down $750,000 over those 7 years. So if you go to a strict user fee, that decline will be even more. So that's kind of the reason that we don't go, the reason they recommend against going strictly to user fees, because that fluctuation would have been a lot steeper down as usage became less.
So have we always had the base fee?
Yeah, there's been a base fee since this was implemented.
Okay.
But I just,
So the base fee covers our revenue bonds and set
It
obligations.
provides a guaranteed income. It may not cover all of the revenue bonds or the infrastructure costs. So there's still some of the actual user fees that have to go to that. Back to the mayor's point, there are communities that instead of having a base fee based upon the number of meters, they do have like a minimum charge. So water is charged out at a cubic foot. So that's approximately 750 gallons. So what you could, and the way they bill it is based upon per unit, right? So you could calculate out, as the mayor suggested, you could calculate out what the minimum is needed, and that becomes the minimum charge for every user.
So every address.
Excuse me, say again.
It would be every house address, every meter.
Every meter.
Every user. So what it is every meter that's out there. So if it happens to be that a duplex has 2 meters, they'll still each of those meters will have a minimum charge.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's based on the meter to the,
Yes, it's
at that
based.
location.
It's based on the meter at that location, but there would be a minimum charge. You could also do, and I don't know if this is something that you'd want to look at. You could say if there is a multi-residential that maybe the base minimum fee is slightly higher, given the fact that they have multiple families within there. We get back to fairness and whatever else argument, but that is also something that you could look at.
Yeah, I guess one of the reasons I like a bigger emphasis on use fee is that if I have someone who decides to water their lawn 24/7 throughout the
Right.
entire summer, and I decide to let my grass go dormant because I don't want to pay that bill, they're paying what they're using, I'm paying what I'm using, and there isn't a base fee that's the same. Does that make sense?
No, I understand. I think that when we passed the current ordinance, we were also looking at some of that fairness in that if you have 20 housing units and you're only paying 1 meter fee, then how is that fair to the household that, the single family household, right? So I mean, there's a balance there that we have to figure out as to where you want to have it be.
Yeah, and I guess I would argue that's made up in the use. If you use more, you pay more. If you use less, you pay less, right?
I ran some like category numbers, and if you do that, the higher the user fee gets, the lower the base fee gets. It transfers, and this is just not right or wrong, it's just what it does. It transfers costs away from residential and puts it on larger commercial and industrial users. So just keep that in mind, that there's some big sewer users that would get higher fees too. So it would impact them as well.
Are they using more?
Yes, they are.
So I guess what if we really want to explore having a versus a base charge, right? Have that minimum use. I would strongly suggest, let me get with the financial advisor. When I talked to him today, he says, well, can you not make a decision for the next couple of weeks? Because he's got to go through that whole model and build it. But I told him, I said, I'd call him tomorrow or email him and say, hey, this is the route they want to go. Let's figure it out.
And yeah, I guess if we're looking to make a change before July 1, you'd have one week.
Right. And well, understand something that in discussions with Administrator Rath today, if we start making changes to the rates and how we want to calculate them, we have to talk with Tim over there, because he's got to be able to build that into their software system. So even if you pass that ordinance, we may not be able to implement those rates for several months.
Yeah.
So the rates that you guys agreed to last year that are escalated every year by so much, the 6.5%, that base rate did cover our obligations for the revenue bonds for the most part. It might be a little adjustment, but very close.
Right.
It was going up because you were expecting to have to get more probably for the sewer separation.
What it is through the pro forma, he looked at our capital expenses outside of the separation.
Mm-hmm.
He looked at the upcoming separation projects based upon initial cost. Then he looked at operations, and understand with the capital costs outside of separation includes things for the sanitary system that doesn't need to be separated, and includes any capital items for the sewer system that's already separated, and it includes equipment for both the sewer collection department and the wastewater treatment plant.
So the conversation that Finance Director O'Donnell was talking about, referring to, we're looking at from a timing standpoint, and understanding the mayor's concern about having this in only 3 meetings before July 1, and if we're going to have 3 readings. The thought with that is, if, and this comes back to that fairness question, one of the reasons V&K modeled this out and looked at the rate structure and the storm versus having included with sanitary or separate, and creating that storm fee. If that was a desire of council long-term to separate that out and have more accountability in the 2 entities versus just having one, we'd have to create an ordinance for that. That would take some time. And so even if we pass the sanitary stuff on, the storm would come later. There's still going to be time built to build in those rate structures for within waterworks. So I would say best case scenario, we're looking at if we're not going with status quo, deferring that July 1 date to sometime in the future, modeling this out, getting correct information for council, for the public on what those rates would look like, whether it's more on user base, separating out storm or not, which is the upcoming decision, all those pieces that go together. And if storm is a separate part of that, having to go through that process, identifying what those rates would be, and I think that we had estimates from prior conversations and the impact on all of that. So that would take some time to fully get all of that done beyond July 1.
And so here's what my suggestion would be is, if we're going to have a continued discussion, implement the 6% on the user fee, pass another vote delaying the implementation of the base fee onto individual rental units while we continue to work on this. The other suggestion would be because there's going to be a change, whatever that change is, that we can go back to, and part of the reason why we went so far out with the ordinance last time, because I think the original ordinance was maybe, we looked at 3 years. We went so far out because there was very serious discussion at the legislature that they were going to limit increases after July 1 of 2025 to no more than 2%, which would have destroyed our ability to meet our obligations. So we went that far out. So my suggestion would be maybe we go back to a 3-year schedule as well. So that gives us time to reevaluate as we go along and be able to make adjustments at the end of those 3 years.
Mr. O'Donnell, if the water sewer rate is based on the usage rate of water, what are you going to do with the stormwater utility? How are you going to compute that?
That the stormwater utility, which is coming up next, is not based upon usage. It's based upon the permeable and impermeable surface of each property.
In the book here, it tells me it's connected with the sewer base fees. Stormwater utility
Currently,
connects with the sewer base fees.
Correct. What it is the model that has been created would lower the sewer base fee, but then implement a stormwater utility fee that would provide the revenues necessary for both the stormwater and the sanitary side. The model that was drawn up, and again, we'll have discussion with this on the next agenda item, but the model was drawn up, looked at probably a savings for most residential properties.
I don't believe that. Okay, straight
Well,
out.
I'm not the expert on. I'm not the expert on that, so you can argue that with them when they come up.
Okay.
One thing when we talk about fairness is, we talked last meeting about when we throw numbers around, it lowers for 9,000 and then affects 500. But I think what we're not thinking about is that 9,000 is single family homes. The 500 are landlords, our small business owners, our multi-units. So when you look at Ottumwa, 61% of our homes are single family, 9% are not occupied, and 30% are rental. So when you talk about 500, that it only affects 500, that actually affects like 4,000 people. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but so that actually affects 4,000 people. And my reason is, when we talk about fees, when we talk about raising fees or splitting fees, and it only affects 500, well, it does affect, and those landlords are our small business owners. And the 4,000 people who rent in Ottumwa, a large majority of those are people who struggle economically and want to build up and get on their feet. They're elderly who want to live in a rental property because it takes the pressure of maintenance, repairs, and all that. So when we talk about raising, understand that's the ones who are affected when we say it affects 500. Now, in my opinion, our landlords in Ottumwa are every bit as important as those contractors and those developers out of Alta Vista right now. I mean, our landlords, they also serve a purpose for people who move here, work here for a while, and maybe step up. So I just wanted to make it clear that 30% are rental, and the 9% that is not occupied, those are usually rentals that are between. So rental could even be a little higher with more people at times. So that's my concern.
And some of those unoccupied could just be homes that are
Could be just
dilapidated and
homes that, yeah.
Right. So, and I don't disagree with anything that you say. It's up to the council to decide what balance they want to have.
Right. And it was nothing against what you said. I just wanted everybody to know that when we talk about 9,500, that 500 represents, 4,000 or 5,000 people that, I mean, we can't strictly go by numbers. We got to remember our citizens are people too. And who those in the stormwater fee, I know we're going on to it next, and I'll bring this up then, but I also have the concerns about people who will have a fee that's never had it before. Schools, churches, volunteer organizations, places like the food bank. Those are our tax-free organizations. Those are volunteer organizations. And then now some of those could have, we talked last time, I think, Phil, you told me that a business could go up $85 a month with surfaces and everything. Well, it very well could for them too. And they've never figured for that. They've never had that with limited income.
And do understand one of the criticisms that could come up with shifting everything to user fees and with a minimum user fee is that we are now charging basically on the sewer entering the sanitary system while providing funding for the stormwater side. Okay. It hasn't been tested in court, but in some of the research I've done with other communities, there could be a question as to those commingling of those funds. We've been doing it so far because our sewers are combined. So I'm not saying that it can't continue to be commingled. I'm just saying that because of some of the research I've done, there has been some caution raised. And again, that hasn't been tested in court. Our auditors are fine with the way we're doing it so far, but it could be tested.
I also want to point out one thing about the rental numbers you put out there. There's 4,000 rental units in Ottumwa. I believe that there's 4,000 units, but only half of those are multifamily units. So the single family rentals would see a lower sewer charge. So I think there's roughly 2,000 multifamily and 2,000 single family rentals. So the single family rentals would all see a lower sewer fee through this. It'd only be the multifamily that sees the higher. But again, back to the logic behind that, the logic behind applying it to every housing unit was that every housing unit should contribute equally to the capital cost of the sewers. And they're not doing that right now. So that's where it came from. But there is a difference between we're not raising on rentals. It's multifamily that's seeing the difference. The single family rental is being treated the same as a single family homeowner.
I'd like to interject here.
And I've done research. How do we handle? I looked at a lot of the landlords on multi-family and say they were 5 and 8 people live there. But then a lot of single family homes have 15 people living there. And we're talking about use on the system. And that number continues to grow with more people in single family housing. So, when people come and they ask about this, I think that's a legitimate question. And I do think the landlords have a legitimate concern. When I'm talking about the land, I care about the land, but it's the people. The landlords are going to, I know some of theirs are going to go lower and some are going to go a lot higher, and they're going to have to pass this on to people that can't hardly afford it now. Like I said, it's a high number. There's elderly people and there's people who are economic. There's people, some deciding whether to eat or get medicine. Some, do I make a, car payment? Now, not everybody struggles like that, but there are people who do, and those are people of concern too. So my whole point when I said that is we have to look at it mathematically at numbers, but we do have to look at the people that we're affecting as well.
So I just want to bring it back around and make sure that we're focused on currently the ordinance that is in place for sanitary sewer and the base fee and the use fee and where that's at. And then where we move from there. And what I'm understanding is there needs to be more conversation. We need to get to a different place than where we are today. And so really, and we're not taking action tonight, but really I'd like us to come to a consensus of, okay, what action do we need to take, if any, on the current ordinance? And then from there, we can move our discussion into what that might look like with a stormwater fee, how that affects different things, and get into those weeds.
So tonight, we just want to kind of give Cole kind of a direction to go.
Yeah,
Right?
well, let's have the discussion on the stormwater, and then based upon that, so if the council decides to do something with that, right? Plus the idea of going to a minimum user fee on sewer with either a 0 or lower base fee, I can then send that to the financial advisor, the whole package advisor, and he can run his scenarios. I would hope that he could have something. I doubt he'll have something by next Tuesday, but he would certainly have something 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
I know it's not ideal for some of the getting this through and getting it done, but I really believe that we need to have that analysis in order to make sure we're making the right decisions.
And I would agree. We need to bring Tim and Waterworks and stuff into the conversation as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So if we're going to now transition into the stormwater, I'll just transition us into it, Chris, so you don't have to read that. So I'll just kind of start with my introduction, and I know Philip probably has some things to add to this. So when this was presented before, I know there's a lot of concerns with it, and I totally understand that. I've also done some looking and some research, and this isn't the first time it's done. It's done in a lot of other communities throughout the country, and it's a growing trend. If it's done, I think we need to do it right for Ottumwa. With that, I would state the reason this is being looked at is prior to recently, Ottumwa had one sewer system. Now that we're separating the storm from the sanitary, we have two systems. And in order to do that, what this does is it places the stormwater fee as taking care of the stormwater system. And the sanitary fee takes care of the sanitary system. If we only had the one system, we wouldn't need the stormwater fee. Probably wouldn't even come up. But now that we have two systems, this is a way that one can support itself and the other can support itself. And the way it's written now, the sanitary fees that are in place would support them both. What this does is it gives us an opportunity for each one to work together, but with each system. With that, and before I turn it over to you, Philip, is one of the things I would like to see happen is that if we do go with two different fees, that we end up putting a ceiling on them so that the people of the city of Ottumwa know this isn't something to where, okay, now you got an opportunity to raise a fee 10%. And then you can raise the other one 7%. And now we can't afford it. Yeah. So I think that I would like to see council move to, if we go to two fees, I'm going to say if, because we haven't decided, that there also is a ceiling put in place for both of them. And that total is figured out so that we aren't feeing ourselves out of existence. I'll put it that way. So with that, Philip.
So, yep. So just a separate system, it is a separate system. The numbers I said last time, there's 86 miles of sewer main that are just stormwater mains. We have 5,000 structures that are just stormwater structures. We have 9 pump stations that are just stormwater pump stations. Just as an example, the Lagoon pump station next to Bridgeview, only pumps stormwater. It costs $4.5 million in 2016. So that's a stormwater project that's strictly stormwater that is part of the stormwater system. The Gateway Pump Station, that cost $7 million back in 2017. It was cost shared with FEMA, so our out-of-pocket cost was $1.5 million. That total project down there on Gateway Drive to separate all that out to keep it from flooding again, that was a $20 million project. Again, we're only responsible for 20% of it, so it's like $4.5 million for us. But those are the type of expenses that are strictly stormwater expenses that this type of fee would go towards. And again, just to reiterate too, that the sewer fund is a utility. Anything that is raised through the stormwater utility can only be used for stormwater. There's no reason, and there's any revenue you raise above what it costs to operate that system would just sit in that fund forever. It can't leave. You can't build up a huge balance in your sewer fund and be like, all right, we're going to switch it to parks, or anything else. Not to think about parks, but by law, like the sewer fees have to stay with the sewer system. And council approves every rate change with the sewer department or the sewer fees. They approve every annual budget, and they also approve every big capital project. So we can't just raise sewer rates and pay for anything you want to. It only can pay for sewer. So there's no incentive to anybody for raising them beyond what it costs. You guys want to talk about kind of how ubiquitous stormwater fees are in the state and what different cities use them for?
Yeah. Well, they come up. That was kind of reference what Bergmeyer was talking about, was what I was referring to as far as accountability. By having distinct systems, it's easier to track costs for the one and costs for the other, and the rates being associated with those. So they are identified separately instead of commingled. So it does provide more accountability.
And I just have one more question too. So when I met with you, we talked about how the wastewater is, and I don't mean to, if I might say this wrong, is only reimbursed like 1.5 million.
Yeah, I got a chart for that.
Oh, okay.
too.
Never mind. If you're going to talk about that later,
we can
that's
pull
fine.
Real quick. You know that same PowerPoint? Go to the bottom slide.
Sorry, I'm jumping.
So this is kind of how it's separate systems too, but the plant now, like the billed sewer is what we charge for sanitary sewer. It's roughly 1.5 million gallons a year. It's remarkably steady every year, but we actually treat more stormwater at our sewer plant than we do sanitary sewage through either I&I, which is groundwater. People have downspouts connected to their sanitary system. People have a sump pump in their basement connected to the sanitary system. We obviously still are partly combined in the city. So just kind of an interesting thing that not only do we have a separate storm system, but even our sanitary system is mostly treating stormwater anyway. So I thought that was kind of an interesting point to make. And if it gets a really wet year, we're treating 3 gallons of stormwater for every gallon of sanitary sewage we're treating. So kind of reiterates the impetus on why we want to get the sewer separated, but also that there is separate flows coming in that need to be accounted for separately.
So with that, do you have a rough calculation of how much more it costs to treat water in the sanitary system versus the storm system?
To treat stormwater coming to the plant. So this BOD and stormwater is a lot lower. You still have to pump it everywhere. So our operational cost, there's a huge fixed cost. And part of the fixed cost is having to pump all the water. So you're pumping it no matter if it's stormwater, combined sewage, or sanitary sewage. The only savings that you would have with stormwater is that there's oxygen in already. So you have to add less oxygen to it.
Okay.
Because there's not as much waste in there to treat. I'm trying to think of the right word for it, waste. So the only real savings you have is the oxygen savings, because everything else is the same. The same operators have to treat it. You got to pump it the same way. It's got to flow through all the same pipes. So the only savings is like a small marginal cost for not having to oxygenate it.
But like if it never had to go to the plant.
Right.
Oh,
What about the difference between treated and non-treated?
Oh, so if like a stormwater, it just flows to the levee, and then if the river's low enough, we don't handle it at all after that. It just flows out through the levee. When the river's high, we spend a lot of money pumping it. I just ran some numbers here. Our two biggest pump stations are cost about $12,000 to $15,000 a year just in electricity to pump the stormwater out. So it's a small cost to operate the system, but the capital cost is huge. So yeah,
Or looks like a quick comparison. You have in the projection, we were looking at about $1 million in needed storm revenue versus $7 million in sanitary. So if you think about it that way, you would need $1 million to get all of that untreated to the rivers and streams. So an eighth of the cost if we can get it out of the system.
So if my math is correct, it costs about 7 times as much to treat it in the sanitary versus
Yes.
the storm.
Yes.
Okay.
Or that's probably a conservative number, could be more.
Okay. All right.
And really, yeah, sorry, we're, kind of here for question answer. I think you were asking how many communities are doing this.
Right.
The last, actually I thought it was 2024. It was 2022 was the last time they sent out a spreadsheet, and there was 97 communities at that time, and it's only growing. Like you mentioned, a lot of communities didn't have it because plenty of communities are combined sewer. Some are further along because they had less combined sewers, but any river town was originally a combined sewer. So as towns have been separating or dedicating more resources to storm, or even just paying attention to the different funds of money and where they're spending it, you're at over 100 communities in the state have a separate stormwater utility.
So you said the capital cost is huge to operate this storm system. Is that right?
yeah, capital costs are a large number for both systems. You have the pipes and all the
And
cost
how
of the
often
plant
do
itself.
those need to be replaced and repaired? And
Depends. A lot of our clay and brick sewers are 100 years old. I don't think,
but with us doing this sewer separation, and we've started this, 20 years ago?
yeah.
So the stuff that was put in 20 years ago, is it still in good shape?
Oh, yeah. Like I'd say a concrete stormwater pipe would last 100 years. The only thing that could really shorten that lifespan are, like physical damage, either from an excavator, a utility company boring through it.
So our capital costs as we get done with the sewer separation should go down.
Dramatically, yes. So we talked about rates too, and I want to put a cap on rates. I have one more slide that I wanted to show, like about about what we've done a really good job controlling the operational cost. So go to the expenses. So our expenses in the wastewater treatment plant since 2008 have gone up an average of 1.7%, which is well below inflation. And the sewer maintenance has gone up 0.9%, which is also well below inflation. Some of the low increase in costs for the sewer plant are that it's fairly new. It was built in the 90s. It's only 30 years old. Can't expect those costs to stay low all the time, but we do a really good job of controlling the operational costs. Now, the other side of that coin is sewer separation. So we on paper right now have 10 years left to complete sewer separation. That's really not feasible without crippling rate increases. So we plan on we have a contract with B&K to help us with this, to go back to the EPA and ask for a renegotiation of a long-term control plan. So something that would be really helpful is if we get direction from council on, what do you want long-term sewer rates to look like? Do you want us to keep them, where they're at now and just increase them by inflation every year? And we can use that revenue projection to figure out how much money we'll have every year for sewer separation and come up with a timeline on completion. So any sort of direction like that on what you want rates to look like long-term will help us figure out this isn't like individual rates. This is like the total revenue for the stormwater utility. So I don't know what the rate structure will look like beneath that total top line number, but if you give us a direction on what you want that top line number to look like I said, we can use that to go to the EPA, and we can use that to go to our financial advisors and come up with a plan and say, EPA, here's what we've done so far. Here's what we charge for sewer rates right now. Here's our long-term projections for these rates. We want to, raise them by the rate of inflation every year, but keep them nominally the same they are now and see what that looks like and see if that's acceptable with the EPA or not. So,
Phil, you're showing us 3-line graphs.
oh,
Can
sorry.
you start with number 1?
Yeah. So
and
the
go
very,
down? Tell us what 1 is, 2 is, and 3 is.
yeah, the very bottom one is orange. That's our internal sewer maintenance department. That's our 6 guys that go through and do street sweeping. They do televising, sewer cleaning, and replace like small capital projects, like replacing a basin here, fixing a sewer line there, like just smaller projects. So that's roughly $750,000 a year. That purple line above it adds in like contracted maintenance work. That's like we have a manholes we replace every year by contract. So it's a very small number for that contracted work. The blue line is the wastewater treatment plant.
Is that the top one?
The blue line is the second from top. So the blue line is the wastewater treatment plant. Yep, that one right there.
Okay, so for somebody that's colorblind, that's pretty difficult for me to figure out.
I didn't think of having blue and green on there for that. Sorry. So that second from the top, that's the wastewater treatment plant, and it's held really steady for the most part for the last, even in nominal terms, it's right at 2.5 million. You know, a little high, a little low from that for the last almost 20 years. We did have a big spike 2 years ago. I looked that up and figured out what happened. It was like a $300,000 increase in our property insurance. Other than that, everything else only increased by 90,000 that year, and it dropped back down the last fiscal year. So I think they've done a really good job trying to control our operational costs on all our systems. And those operational costs do include some maintenance and some small capital items too. It does not include sewer separation. This is sewer separation, sewer
So then
fund
the top
expenses.
line is what?
That's all 3 of those lines combined.
Okay. All right.
So our operation costs are like 3.5 million last few years, 3.5 to 4. So it off. The other 3 million are basically sewer separation. So
All right, thank you.
gives you a rough idea of what. I'm sorry, 4 million are sewer separation and debt service. So 3.5 to 7.5. So over half of our costs are capital costs.
I do have a couple people on this topic, so I'm going to call them up and we can go back to other questions. So I have Carol, and I don't want to say your last name wrong. Is it Garter? Okay. Guider.
Okay, my name is Carol Guider. I'm president of the Foxwood Condominiums located at 1405 North Jefferson. I wanted to talk about the storm sewer and the charges that you're looking to charge us. And then I would like to talk a couple other ones too. I'm in one of the percentages of the elderly that moved from my home to the condominium to save money. And with some of your things going on, it's just getting outrageous. All of us feel like we're 8 units. My building is on 8 acres. It's surrounded by woods. I am 242 feet from the street. So our water that comes off our parking lots, off our building, goes to the woods. There's a very small percentage. All of our eaves troughs are to the woods. All of our drive, except one, goes to the woods. And I have heard rumors that you're going to charge us per square footage of the building and our parking lot surface. We're not using the majority of the sewer, but we're going to be charged for that. And I totally disagree. And what about the commercial buildings that have made their own driveway or parking lot ponds? How are they going to be charged? I've never heard anything about the charges as far as how they're going to be revenued. Also on the sewer separation, we're 8 units, and we're all pretty well elderly, don't use a lot of water. And I did understand tonight, it's going to be our charge is going to be per consumption. Well, we've had several times that harder hearing elderlies have not heard their stool running, and our bill has went up $200 or $300 for the month. So is there any way that we can meter each unit? I mean, it's going to affect all of us on our HOA fees as everything changes. And I think that's the collection. Is those fees going to come up? It was never said. That's another thing. A new company, they're an investment company. They're going to make money. So are they going to want to raise our fees too? We've had garbage cans set out there all weekend, 8 of them, and 8 recycling because they didn't get them picked up on Friday. So there's a lot of this that concerns people that are elderly and in the condominiums and stuff. I've lived here all my life. I hope to continue, but it's getting to be a challenge.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Mitch Steiner.
Good evening, Mitch Niner, and just make sure everybody knows, I was on council from 08 to 16 at the very beginning of the sewer separation. I kind of find it interesting, 90 some homes or 90 some cities out of, I think there's 947 incorporated cities in Ottumwa. Ben, I don't, putting a ceiling on it, my suggestion is don't do it at all. This is just another money grab. You guys can twist this up however you want it. I'm sorry, I don't trust you at all because you just charged the taxpayers twice for the same presentation. The presentation you did a week ago was the same one I heard in 08, exactly the same. You charged the taxpayers twice for the same presentation, man. I say it's a money grab. I was for it in 08 until our public works director in a passing, are you still on to vote for the sewer tax? Because if something changes, I'm going to have to lay people off. I never ever heard that in the presentation. I just looked at him and said, what are you talking about? He said, if this gets voted down, I'm going to have to lay off people and it's going to be the street patch crew. Then you'll get all the phone calls. I said, you know what? That's a threat. I'm going to vote no and see what happens. It failed on the last reading. It failed. He laid off the street sweeper guy. He didn't lay off the street patch crew. The street sweeper guy, if I remember right, got laid off for like 10 days and then brought back. This is a money grab. You can twist this up however you want. You can juggle funds around. I already know, man. I spent 8 years on this circus. It's a money grab. Don't do it at all. The ceiling can be changed. And concerns about small businesses. Some of them are running on the ragged edge now. Car lots, a lot of cement. According to DOT standards, you got to have cement. They changed that a few years ago. You know what? Cedar Creek Golf Course, Indian Hills Community College, Ottumwa schools, local businesses. Airport, the businesses at the airport. John Deere. Here's what's funny about John Deere. John Deere saved us a phase. They spent their own money internally and separated inside that entire campus so that the city wouldn't bear the burden of that one phase. They saved us a complete phase. Now we're going to turn around and charge it for stormwater? We had to work with the waterworks, if I remember right, to turn a pipe backwards and run the flow into the Black Lagoon at the expense of costing the city their backup water plant, their water pond. We finally got it okayed for the last, to use it as a third water pond. But we never had any local meetings so businesses could ask questions, that type of stuff. We used to have them informational meetings at Bridgeview all the time. Where'd all that stuff go? So I'm just saying, I don't do it at all. This is just a money grab. This would have never came up if we didn't have budget problems. You and I already know that. This would have not come up.
Thank you, Mitch. Is there anyone else that wanted to talk on this subject that didn't turn a slip in? I don't want to miss people again. Okay. Was there any other questions from council?
Well, I just like to say I agree with you. It's just a money grab. And the tighter we turn the screws, the fewer people we're able to retain in our city.
I'm going to ask a question that a citizen asked me, and I didn't know the answer to it, but I think it's really, really good. How is the city going to deal with their own stormwater? And because we have a lot of property with a lot of drainage. And does that mean that that's going to be placed and distributed throughout the residents and the businesses of the city? Or is that going to be subtracted prior to adding that if we go with the stormwater fee?
So it would be up to council how you handle it.
Okay.
I know, like you've mentioned, you don't like to just shuffle money from one place to the next. But the one thing I would say is you are currently paying to manage it. So right now, your sanitary sewer fund is paying for all of it. So the city does not contribute to that right now. Most cities do not back charge themselves for a storm in the same way you don't the other utilities. But it would be up to you.
So if all that would that be part of the fee we're charging the citizens then for our services?
Yes, but in a similar way you are now, because you are paying for this right now, just out of your sanitary fee. But yes.
Right. And I understand it. Man, different information keeps coming out. Like that's a lot of surface. That could be a burden on, the citizen and the taxpayer. And, I'll shut up with this because I don't want to beat anybody up, but I'm not really for raising any fees either. I feel like we're just feeing people to death. And even though we say it's just a change, eventually that change becomes a raise here, a raise here, a raise here, and then we're going to add something else. So, I just want to make that clear to my colleagues and everybody. I'm just, I know we're not taking any action tonight and there's a little bit more time to think, but I'm just not for fees.
One thing I did want to mention, and I know we talked about this last time, the direction for this sewer rate study was to not increase revenue. So the calculations and scenarios we put in front of you was to not generate additional revenue. It did redistribute where you're collecting it from. So the current recommendation was to take your $20 base fee that everyone gets and split it into a 10 and 6. So that's where it was projected to lower residential, but then you're making up the difference on some of those larger users. But it is a shuffling of where the money comes from.
Yeah, and I understand that. And I think the concern, the fear is, okay, maybe not this year. What about in 3 years?
Right.
What about in 6 years? 8, when none of us are here? What is the council going to do then when they have 2 fees that they can slap a percentage rate on the people?
But,
We'll see. And that was my,
but your study, we talked about this last time, was with the hotels, you had them at 100% occupancy. You also have all of our high rises, which are elderly or are low income that cannot absorb those additional costs. And we're putting the money on the backs of the people who can least afford it.
And that's fair. And I think those are the 2 different discussions from the 2 different agenda items. I'm talking about the stormwater is not going per
No,
unit. But yes,
I
you're
understand
correct
that,
about the other piece.
But the study is, done by a company that's been doing business with us for a very long time. So it's not an independent study. It's your study. I have an issue with that. To me, that wasn't, somebody coming in and looking at us with new eyes. So I have issues with all of the fees. The sewer-based fee for the units, and then now this stormwater. As that woman said, I live on a house that lives on a hill. My house is on the hill. All of my water goes to my backyard. I have 3/4 of an acre. That's where it's going. I can't even mow my backyard. So I know it's not going into the sewer. It's going into the ground. But I also have a lot of pavement. So I would get charged for all that pavement that I've got and the size of my home and the pole barn, which are all in the city. So my rate would go up.
I think as a residential user, what we were proposing, but council would have to approve, and there's certainly other directions, but our proposal was that every residential user have the same storm
But she
fee.
wouldn't have that option because she's an
As a
eighth family.
commercial, correct, that, yes.
So that's where I have a problem with this. It's just, you're saying that it's fair, but it doesn't feel fair to me.
And if we have out of town landowners like she discussed, they're just going to lay that fee on her. And I'm afraid we're in a trap where we think, $25 here, $20 there, $10 here doesn't add up. It does add up to a lot of people. It does, $10, bills are paid, to live on. And so like I said before, and these numbers are fine, but we need to look at the people that were affected. But I think we need to realize too that even the people that are okay with the fee raises, even the people that can afford it, we can't just do it to them just because we can. When we look at fees, it's no better when we're raising our fees. So if I'm understanding this right, Phil, tell me if I'm wrong. There's a sanitary inside, stormwater outside, and then a meter base fee. Any of those three, it's fine this year, we say, let's just say, I don't think it is, but let's just say those are three different fees we could raise. If you could just come to council and say, we need to raise this 10% or we're not going to make it, right? That's possible. And it seems like as a council, and I blame myself too, we get stuck in a trap where we scare people with fees. Either you pay this or we're going to lose firemen, pay this or we're going to lose police, pay this or we're not going to have a service. We got to give them some relief. I understand the prices go up. I understand. But prices go up, but for people in the lower economic category and the elderly people who are trying to enjoy life, their pay don't go up. Their bills don't go down. Even if we look at single family units, you got single family units where they're paid off and people may have been paying it for 30 years to get to a place where they're comfortable. And now we're going to add some more fees to them that I don't know. I have reservations.
Well, I guess one of the points was that, we're raising fees. We're not short of revenue right now. We have all the revenue we need from the base fee. But one thing I want to point out, I like to listen to Dave Ramsey. He likes to look at stuff backwards. So let's say we had a stormwater fee now and every commercial unit had to pay for their impervious surface. And you guys are voting to get rid of the stormwater fee. Well, to get rid of that stormwater fee, you would have to raise rates on single family houses by $60 a year. And you'd be raising rates on those people. So in order to cut it for the commercial users and the people that contribute to the stormwater system. So yes, you're raising rates on some people to implement a stormwater fee, but you're also lowering them for some. And if you look at it backwards and you had a stormwater fee now that was raising $1 million, and we decided we don't want to burden the commercial users or the apartments with that stormwater fee, let's get rid of it. But we're going to raise rates on single family homes by $60 a year to pay for that. So it's not really you're raising rates. You are raising rates on one people, but you're lowering them on another. And we're not, like I said, we're not trying to raise rates for everybody. We're trying to redistribute what we have. And yeah, you could raise, the fees are combined. Like I said, there's one sewer utility, three sources of revenue. Well, three main sources of revenue. If we implement a stormwater fee, there's a stormwater base fee, a sanitary base fee, and a user fee. You can combine that stormwater fee and sanitary fee into one and raise it by 5%, or you can split them up, raise them by 5%. The same money's coming into us. We're not going to hurt either way. It's just who pays for the system and what's the fairest way to do it. I'm not saying we need to raise rates because we don't need to raise rates. We have what we need now. We're just trying to take what we have here and allocate it more equitably to who uses each sewer system.
And I think this kind of gets into that principle we were talking about earlier of looking at that base fee versus a user fee and saying those that are using or taking advantage of the system are the ones that are paying for it. And so this calculation puts more emphasis on people with that more impervious surface, treats the residential units as one unit, but then your commercial and other things that have a lot of more impervious surface that are taking advantage of the rate structure the way it is now, they're the ones that would be paying for it. So it kind of, it evens that out in the same way that having that user fee be higher on the sewer system would, for those that use more water, would pay more water to be treated.
And under the proposed fee, like a Joel's example, you're already paying for your stormwater coming off your property. Like you're paying $20.65 this month for your sanitary base fee.
Okay.
We would split it up into $10 for your sanitary, $6 for your storm. So it just separates those two functions of the sewer utility into two separate functions, a sanitary utility and a stormwater utility. So you're not getting an extra $6 fee for your stormwater coming off your property. If you're a residential user, you're paying the $16, a combined fee, stormwater and sanitary, versus a single $20.65 sanitary fee. So you're going to pay for your stormwater either way. It's either going to be through your sanitary base fee or through the two separate base fees.
So Joella lives in a single family home, and that's what we're talking about. Okay, that
Correct.
we're talking about the people not in the single family homes that are going to incur those costs that they can't afford it.
But that's why I
And
said look at it
understand-
backwards.
I understand
you know.
some things have happened, and I appreciate, all the work that's gone into it. But still, if an outsider was looking in, I mean, looking at moving to Ottumwa, I mean, if it was just these fees we were talking about, but it's not. It's just in general, and it just seems like we're absolutely not treating our landlords like they're small business owners because we just keep referring to them as 500. But like I said, that 500 is 4,000 people. It's elderly. It's people who can't afford it. It's people who sold their houses to move into apartments to make it easier. And we're not taking that into account. We just, I know my job up here is to make hard decisions and talk about numbers. But you know what? Maybe I'm a bad councilman, but I'm always going to put the people first. And I have to think about the people that live here. And that's what's most important. I mean, I don't want to lay fees on, and I don't want to lay people on higher economic levels. I don't want to lay fees on them either. I understand some fees have to raise, but I don't know. I really, really, really am worried about this.
If you're saying that we have enough money right now with our current base fee and the user fee that we currently are using, do we really have to introduce the meters for the multi-units?
That's with the structure we have now.
Right,
Like
but
that's
if we took that out, we'd still be okay with the monies that we're receiving.
Not necessarily. Right now, the charges for services within the sewer fund are 600 to 700, projected to be 600 to 700,000 dollars behind estimate. That will impact going forward because the pro forma that was done took into account those fees being charged. Again, so this is
So
why.
what you're saying is if we didn't want to charge for the additional units, we would have to raise our base fee on both the usage and the base fee itself for the
Well,
meter.
what I'm saying is that given some of the discussion tonight, we would take that back, look at what would be necessary. And yes, there could be a larger increase on the user fees and a larger increase on the base fee. So that again, this is why I think it's important that the council give us some direction. We can feed that to the right people and then get the information back to you to help you make a decision.
Well, so, and I'll end with this. I've asked too many questions, and I don't apologize. It's my job to ask questions. When you look at an apartment or sewer water fees and these meter fees, when you look at a landlord and they have an apartment with 5 that has 8 people in it, okay? Then you have a single family unit that has 12 people in it. So when the landowner comes and says, hey, I only have 8 people in my unit and I have 5 meters, they have 15 people in their unit and they have 1 meter. Are we just supposed to say, oh, sorry, you're part of the statistic?
Couple things. One, you're right that any system you implement will have some inequity built into it. Part of what we looked at for you guys was, what do other communities do? There are 45 different ways to write a sewer ordinance because there's always someone who will be paying more than their fair share, which right now are your single family users. The other piece is we try and balance that with the usage. That's why you have the base and the usage. Our assumption would be the single family home with 12 people is using more and is paying a larger portion of that bill. But in that scenario, that would be a fair complaint that the rate structure is not perfectly protecting them.
Well, and something you just said there, and again, I don't want to beat you up. I'm just asking questions. As you said, any way this is done and how, no matter how it's done, there's always going to be someone who doesn't pay their fair share. I can't buy a plan where there's somebody who doesn't pay their fair share or is paying over their fair share. It has to be even and equal across the board, because if you have people who aren't paying their fair share, you got people who are, then it's not a good plan. If you got people paying more, paying less.
Councilman Hoffman, the answer to your question is we will not approve stormwater fee. It takes it off the table altogether. I know we're not voting tonight, but that's my opinion.
Councilmember Galloway, did you have a question? You sure?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
Thanks. I feel like, yeah, never mind.
Okay. I think where we need to end this right now is just maybe giving Mr. O'Donnell some direction as to what we're looking for. If we're going to just keep it the way it is now, or if we need to make some adjustments, and what direction that's going to be.
I get the feeling that stormwater fees are not going to be included in the calculations, and that what I will do is have the financial advisor build a model based upon minimum service fee, and then also compare it to the current structure without, with and without charging each residential unit that base fee as well. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah. Does that sound reasonable to council?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Last item on the agenda. This was a salary study of comparables that I had put together before. And the last time I was going to present it, I just felt it wasn't the right time to present it. So I'm going to present it tonight. So thank you, Travis. So I'm going to go through these, and I'll kind of talk about the intent behind this as we go and how they all kind of tie together. This first one is just a comparison of tax revenue per cities. You'll see several of those towns are the ones that we typically compare ourselves to because they are similar in size. They're also not part of a metro area. And those are the first 6, so Burlington through Mason City. The reason I put the other ones in there, Ames, Council Bluffs, and Iowa City, is I was just curious as to what some of these higher ones would come out at as I started comparing different salary and different aspects that they have in their community. So as we go through this, the order that they're in is based off of this order, to where the lowest tax generated revenue is on the left and the highest is on the right. So when things change, just remember the highest one of tax revenue is on the right, lowest one on the left. So that's what this one's all about. So yeah, next slide, please. This one really looks at just poverty level. It's a poverty level chart. It's based off of percentage poverty level. I brought this information from, was it Data USA? And it was presented. And so again, I was not able to get the same cities. So there's other comparables that we've looked at before that are part of a metro area. Bettendorf, Clive, again, those are smaller necessarily small in population, similar to us, but they are part of a metro area. That's the only anomaly in here. I think the important thing here is to look at the furthest ones on the left, because that's the comparables that go through this entire presentation. But you can see of those, we are second highest, not including Muscatine, in the poverty level place. And I'll explain why that's in here in a minute. So we can go to the next slide. So this looks at just department head officers that are the same throughout all the different cities. And when I say that, there are some cities that have other department heads that we don't, and vice versa. So like you won't see airport authority because not all towns have an airport. So I tried to just break it down into just these basic ones so we'd have some way of comparing. And what I was looking here was to see, okay, are we out of line? Are we out of line with our salaries when comparing with other communities that are similar to us, similar in size, similar in tax revenue? And you can see that they incrementally increase based on tax revenue. As I looked at it as a whole, compared to other communities, I don't feel that we are out of line. I feel like we are in alignment with other communities. There's only one anomaly, and that's Council Bluffs, and that was interesting to me. The biggest difference there is their administrator is their mayor. And so the ordinance of that, it sets the salary at a much lower level than other cities that are modeled the same way Ottumwa is. So that's why that one's so much lower. In fact, you can see the public works engineer. There's a bunch of different positions in that have the exact same salary. So that's the difference there. And that's one of the reasons why they are so much lower, even though they are the second highest tax revenue on this chart. So that's where that's at. The other thing I'd like to point out, that dashed line in there, that's the salary of the Iowa State governor. So that's how much the governor gets paid. And then that's where all the different city salaries are. What I did notice is that I believe that we've been kind of caught into a comparison battle throughout all the different communities, and it's probably not unique to our state. And when we start comparing, and I know that we have to have salaries in there to compete with other communities, to bring other leadership into our city in order to retain the leadership that we have here, to bring new ones in. All of that is kind of the comparison game, almost keeping up with the Joneses type attitude. And when that happens through all the different communities, we see an acceleration or an inflation of salaries that may go beyond the means of the tax revenue brought in. And so, like I said, when we're looking at other communities, I think we're still in alignment. There's anomalies here and there, but that's the reason for this chart. So let's go to the next slide. This is a slide where I just looked at us, and I looked at our individual salaries. I was trying to track individual positions from 21 through 26, starting at 21, and if we would have done a salary increase strictly on the cost of living amount for each year that was given by the League of Cities. If we were to start in 21 at what those salaries were on that year, and the cost of living increase per position, this is what the graph would look like. Obviously it goes real even because the percentage is the same for everybody. The bigger salaries, of course, would increase a little bit more, but overall, it keeps everything in the same spread that they were to begin with. That isn't the way that we did our salary increases.
Just a point of
Yes.
clarification. So this chart would be if the people were, so if it wasn't new employees staying in the same position for 5 years, correct? So it wouldn't
Right.
take into account if someone came in with more experience or something like that. This is the same employee for the next 5 years,
Right.
correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So I just took the salaries of what they were in 2021. And then in 22, I increased it by the cost of living increase for 22.
Okay.
And I didn't take into account leaving position, new position, anything like that. So that's what that one is. So next slide. This is the same thing, and this just looks at department heads. So it gets rid of some of the jumble, so it's a little bit easier to read. Again, I took the salaries of where things were in 21 and just increase each year based on the cost of living increase in that year. So again, no changes of personnel coming in or out. I know we had changes throughout those years, but this is just in a perfect world. If that's the direction that we would have went, this is where we would have ended up. So then next slide. This is what we did. So we started in 21, and this is based off, I'm going to state this right up front. There are anomalies in here that don't make sense. And so some of the data I was plugging into a spreadsheet, and I was comparing, and these were all from publicized salaries per position. There were times where a position would change hands, and so salary would change, or a position started from a different position, and so it was only there for half a year, and so we didn't have a full year salary in that. So this is all the publicized salaries for each year. So there are some anomalies in here, but overall, it kind of gives you an idea of where things have been throughout the salaries in the last 6-7 years. With this, our current salaries right now, if my calculation is correct, and Mr. O'Donnell, if I'm wrong, you can correct me or whoever. My calculation in 25 is that our total salary is $4,385,000. And I don't know if I have another slide that shows something different, but I think the other, yeah, and that's the same thing with just department heads. There was one that I did, and maybe it's not here, where if we would have done just the COLA, the cost of living increase, I believe our total salary at this year would have been about $500,000 less, if I remember right. So again, this is a comparison looking at the different salaries, where things have went in the last 6 years. I know that there's been a lot of talk as to our salaries are out of control, or, you know, increases are huge in different positions and things like that. This is the data that I researched. I plugged it in, and this is the result. So it's just simply data. And I just wanted to have that speak for itself. So with that, what I would like to see, and this is something that council can talk about from here on out, is what do we need to do in order to help maybe the spaghetti look turn into more consistent. I know some of that, again, is positions changing hands. I know our finance department went through a mess in the last 6 years. A mess. And that shows on this chart of the ups and downs that it went through. So those are all things to take into consideration. But moving forward, if we were to look at this chart 6 years from now, starting from this year to 2012, what would the chart look like at that point? What are we going to do now in order to set us up so 6 years from now, we don't necessarily have spaghetti? Although I like spaghetti, but that's the intent of these charts. Again, comparison-wise with other communities, yeah, we're in alignment. At the same time, I think overall, that comparison game has cost all our communities to go out of control to a certain extent and beyond our means. And that's why the poverty level was in there. We can increase salaries, and we can do it based on retainage and bringing new people in and all that, and that's all well and good. We can compare with other communities, and that's good too. But if we do it outside the means of who we are in Ottumwa, we put ourselves in a position like what we're seeing now in the budget. And so we have to keep that in mind moving forward as we're looking at salary compensation and how we're spending that. And I looked at this and I thought, well, no wonder the state of Iowa is looking to reduce and cut back on what we're able to do with our property taxes. Because if we're comparing ourselves so far out, we're pricing ourselves out of existence to that point. So we can take a lead on this. We can take a lead in showing other communities, okay, this is how you can do it. This is how you can still bring in the best talent and not have to just spend yourself through it. We can look at regionalization. We can look at, cooperating with county and other communities. And we've talked about that a little bit. But I think that's where we're headed. That's where we're going. So with that, I'll open up for questions, comments, and anything else that council has from that.
So I just want to say a couple things about the one that the spaghetti one. I think it's back a couple slides. So when I count the anomalies with the numbers and then I count the lines, if we take those anomalies out, then we don't have the kind of the ups and downs. We have more of a consistent raise. So I just want to point that out. I also, sorry, I'm trying to correct my thoughts too. So I think it's important to look at where we are and understand, our poverty rate too, but we also have to remember that, for example, the poverty level chart, one of our comparables is Muscatine, which I don't see in our salary compensation, but they do have a high rate of poverty. But if we look at salaries, most of their salaries are actually higher than ours too. Not that, again, I understand what you're saying, that comparison too, but I just wanted to point that out for the comparison.
Sure.
I also think that the thing that we're not seeing with the salary comparisons too is that some of these are contracts, so they are negotiated for increases also. So when we talk about, sorry, what?
There's only one contracted employee.
Is there in this? In the all staff?
Are you referring to union?
Yeah, union.
Union employees as well?
Union,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
About the other, sorry.
No, I apologize. Yeah, union. So then so when we think of that, how do we, I guess I should say that should be part of our discussion too, because we get ourselves into contracts and then, we need to follow through with those contracts too. But that's where some of those jumps are coming from too, with those raises. Does this include overtime also in the salaries?
I don't believe so, because this is simply what was published in the paper.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that includes
So that
everything.
does
include
include
overtime.
overtime. That
Everything.
does include
So
overtime.
what's
Okay.
published in the paper is absolutely everything that an employee has been paid for that year. So
Okay.
if there is overtime, anything like that.
Okay.
If I could add some color as well, just some other things to think about and just
Sure.
share from my perspective. So council passed the compensation handbook in FY24. Prior to that, there was nothing that regulated or provided any context about salaries and like what we should be doing or things like that. And that's one of the reasons that we did the compensation study. So that was passed in 24. What we've done since that time is council has provided that direction within that compensation handbook that we will do our best to follow the Midwest CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. Again, we never had that before. It was simply whatever council approved to do that. And since that time, that compensation handbook has been adopted and changed and everything by a number of other cities. I've been contacted by numerous cities that like what we have, appreciate that it's actually out there on our website now, and they have taken different things from that compensation handbook. So just something else to keep in mind that I agree, and to Councilperson Galloway's point, we've had a lot of turnover. There's been a lot of turnover in a lot of these positions. We've looked at, people that get certifications and what does that mean for the city? And that allows us to do different things. Now there is a cost that comes along with that. So there's been a lot of changeover from positions themselves, but 24 is really kind of that baseline where we can then look and say, okay, what are we doing since that time? Because now we have guidance where we never had that before.
And I think I understand what you're trying to say is that if employees leave or we hire new people, what does that look like? Are we continuing to compare with other cities, or are we saying this is how it's going to be or working with like the county, can we share positions? Or if we're bringing a position on, is this something we can, I don't know if it'd be a contract or, am I summarizing that into
Yeah,
the
I think-
understanding?
Yeah, I'm not discrediting comparing to other communities. I think that can be a place to start, because you got to look at your competition. But at the same time, you can't price yourself out either. We have to be responsible to our own community first. And I think that's what we've lost. I remember something that Mayor Johnson said. I think it was on the last meeting that he was mayor. But he was talking about how new leadership coming in, speaking of myself and other council members here, are going to need to look at new creative ways to do things. And so doing the comparison and all that, yeah, that's good. But we have got to start looking at our people first. And I think we've kind of lost sight of that. And I'd like to bring it back. I also think we have a unique opportunity that I've seen in I'll say the Sanitary Waste Commission, the way that the county and the city are working together there. We have an opportunity to expand on that and work together like we've never worked together before, and we're going to have to. So those are some of the thoughts I had coming out of this salary comparison. And I had put a lot of work into it, so I wanted to show it off a little bit. I also would like us to have this opportunity. I know Councilmember Galloway, you had mentioned, when are we going to have the hard conversations to get this budget to where we need it to be? And I thought this would be another opportunity to where we can ask questions, start some of that hard conversation. And not saying it's going to get done tonight, but this is an opportunity to where we can ask those questions if there's information that we need in order to move forward in those hard conversations, what those questions and what that information is. I want to open it up for that as well.
Not to add fuel to the fire, but with the current property tax legislation that was passed and will be signed by the governor, I don't know if it has been or yet, but it will be. One of the things they did was they took homestead credits and other credits, and they now made them exemptions, which means that they will no longer be sending cities money for those credits. They will just be exemptions. Additionally, the state had been backfilling, for lack of a better term, the $150,000 on commercial and industrial being at the residential rate for the rollback. They were backfilling that, not completely. It's now gone as well. I haven't calculated the total impact on finances. What I can tell you is that any fund that receives tax dollars was receiving those credits and those backfills. The general fund would not have the ability to necessarily make those up, because there would be a hard cap on the revenues of 2%. And when I say a hard cap, what that means is we could have valuation growth of 4%, but we're only limited to 2% revenue growth, period. So it doesn't adjust the levy. What they'll do is they'll adjust the amount of taxable valuation that we can tax upon in order to hard cap us. The other levies are still at as needed. So we can make up those revenues, but that means a increase in the levy. So our benefit levies are the ones that we can control the most. That is where we can make up those revenues. Again, I don't have it prepared for tonight, but I'm going to be looking at what the effects are, so you can take that into consideration as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that go into effect July 1?
It does not affect the current fiscal year 27 budget, but every budget there going forward. One thing they did do was they left in some language from 718 to where we do have to be down from our current 851 in the combined general fund levy to 810. But instead of having that be fiscal year 29 is now fiscal year 31. So it gives us a little bit of opportunity to be able to make adjustments before that happens.
Thank you.
For my thoughts, I don't know. I'll probably look like the bad guy, but I understand comparisons are nice. That's how you come up with a general price of things. But to be honest with you, again, I'd be doing you disrespect if I didn't tell you. I don't care what Muscatine does. I'm not over their budget. I don't care what Davenport or Fairfield or Oski does. I'm not over their budget. I'm not responsible for their citizens and taxpayers. I'm responsible for ours. So, you know, somebody, and the only reason I say that is because somebody makes something in one city. Okay, maybe that's their budget. Maybe they can afford it. We want to attract talent, but we can still, we can only still pay what we can afford. So when I look at things, to be just transparent with everybody, I look at the role. I look at roles that can be combined. Is the salary in line and the efficiency of the role? That's what I look at. I don't worry about comparison to other towns. Now, I'm not insulting what anybody makes here. I'm just saying that's how I personally look at it. I'm responsible for my citizens, my taxpayers, and my tax money, and not the other towns. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Any other questions or comments? Is that it? Anyone from the public that would like to make a comment? Yes.
Sorry, Colleen Decker, 719 Glenwood Avenue. Just a quick thought there, and you got my mind going on it with the Dave Ramsey. I listen to him all the time too, and he doesn't say, look at your neighbor and what they're doing with their money and do that. He says, look at what you're spending, and if you don't have it, cinch up your belt, get rid of this and get rid of that, and do what you have to do to get where you need to be and do the hard things. So as a citizen and looking at my neighbors and looking at where people are, if we can't afford it, we can't do it. It doesn't matter how much we like what you're doing or we like you. If we can't afford you, we can't afford you. And I think that just looking at it overall, it seems simple until we get feelings in the way. And I think as public servants, we have to get the feelings out of the way and do what's best for the citizens. So,
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Yeah.
Administrator Routh.
Thank you. And I think that's a great point. And things that we've talked about before is looking at the, or at least things that I've talked about before is looking at the level of services that are provided, because we can talk about staff and staffing levels and staffing salaries and all of that. But when it comes down to it, there is a cost to provide services. And if we can't afford the services, then that needs to be something that's looked at. I think, looking at the poverty level, it may not translate 100% to salaries, but I think there are other things as far as services where it could. Looking at communities that have similar statistics and poverty levels, do they have an event center? And I think the event center is a great thing and it's a quality of life thing. But if our population can't afford to go to shows, what good is it to have an event center that can't be paid for? That might be something that has to be considered, or at least how it's provided in a certain way. I think it's public now. They're going to be looking for a new director for that operation. Scott Hallgren is moving on to a new position, and congratulations to him and the service that he provided over the years. That might be an opportunity to look at how that center is run going forward. And it's right now taxpayer supported to a large degree. Is that something we can continue to afford?
Any other comments, questions? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Chris, take the roll, please.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember Dupre,
Yes.
Councilmember Cavaness.
Yes.
No, you're fine.